Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's symposium on politics, philosophy, life, ethics, pretty much all of the above, right? Thanks for taking the time. My name is Henry Mack. I'm Associate Dean for Academic Affairs for the Arts, Humanities, Communication, and Design pathway here on South Campus. My passion in life has been philosophy. First-generation college student who majored in philosophy and then just became sort of obsessed with like questions of life, being, and all of that good stuff. And so events like this sort of like remind me why we value the liberal arts and why we value professors like Dr. Cornejo, Rudy John Bart, Chery, and everyone else in the audience and faculty members, Fritz Fixama, professor of philosophy here on South Campus, that support inquiry, that support freedom of discussion, civil debate, dialogue, and reasoned thinking, right? And I think that's really sort of important and probably to some extent maybe lost in our society today. Like the ability to talk dispassionately, calmly about topics that matter, right? So just my hats off to you, the students, for pulling this together and creating sort of the intellectual space for us to just reflect, to think, to dialogue about important stuff, right? So, in any case, that's my spiel. Again, welcome. My name is Henry Mack. If you need anything, or if you have any questions about majoring in the humanities, visual arts, performing arts, philosophy in particular, my office is in 71105. And so, again, thanks to Dr. Cornejo and everyone else involved in support of this afternoon symposium. In the audience this afternoon, just want to give a shout out to Dr. Rolando Garcia, who is the South Campus president. To my right, down there, I think he might be saying a few words at the end, as well as Dr. Sunem Beaton Garcia, who is the Central Campus president for Broward College. So, without further ado, I'm here to introduce your moderator for this afternoon, Kevin Thomas, who is an international student here at Broward College from Curacao, majoring in aviation administration. I almost became an air traffic controller, interestingly enough, Kevin, and I think that's what you wanted to do. But then somehow I started reading Plato and had a professor like Ed Cornejo convince me that philosophy was the best thing to do in life, which it is. So, here we go. Kevin Thomas will kick us off for this afternoon's event.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dean Mack, for that introduction. As Dean Mack said, my name is Kevin Thomas, and I'm going to be one of the moderators today. Now, this semester, me and my classmates, had to do a humanities class, a class that is required of all BC students. Our professor, Dr. Cornejo, challenged us to do a symposium this year. And in my mind, whoa, how are we going to do this? This semester, we had to do the symposium, and we had to coordinate everything. We had to design. We had to figure out every various things that needed to be done in order to do the symposium. So, this semester, all we had to do was choose the speakers. We had to practice, train, and do everything that needed to be done in order to do this. Needless to say, we were nervous. Or should I say, we are nervous. You can see me. But what I love about this is it brought the best out of my classmates and myself. Bringing us out of our comfort zones and showing us that we are able to do great things, even at an early age. Today's symposium is all about civil debate. But what does that even mean? As an international student, I find United States politics odd. Why is it so difficult to make a decision in this country? Why is it that there's only two real political parties. How is it possible that you can only be liberal or conservative? Now, these are the major things that our speakers here today are going to be talking about. Our first speaker is Sarah McClain, better known as Toms. Is a musician with an incredible love for dad jokes. She grew up in South Florida, where she was homeschooled with her three brothers and spent most of her time delving into choral music. Toms plans on majoring in nutrition. Who doesn't love food? With the unrelevant hopes and dreams of becoming a wife and mom. Please help me welcome Sarah McClain.
God bless America. In God we trust, but only when things are tough. For events like school shootings or terrorist attacks. Guns are protecting our nation. No, they're killing the innocent. Censor out hate speech. But what about our free speech rights? The Me Too movement is a hoax. How could you say that? Trump is ruining America. No, I think Trump's got our back. But who actually cares anyways? We are all just listening to plot an attack. Religion, science, and politics. Religion and science are a comfort to some and a point of contention for others. And politics, well, it's in everything. These three thought-provoking topics often collide in our society, but seldom do they coexist, or at least that's what they say. In our study of humanities this semester, I have found that these three things go hand in hand, and in order for each to function properly in a society, you need the others. So I ask you, can politics really coexist with religion when so many see the negative effects of involving feelings or emotions in our political atmosphere? It's hard, but yes, they can. Can religion really coexist with the same science that so many believe disproves the ideas that lie within their holy books? Yes, it can. Are we just so close-minded that we think whatever we believe is fact and true, regardless? Do we blindly follow what we've been taught since we were young? What has happened in our culture that everything turns into a debate? It seems like you can't have a simple discussion about sensitive topics without a heated ending or personal attacks. Isn't this the beauty in America? That we have this right to free speech? Or is it a train wreck waiting to happen? See, I think there is beauty in being able to share opinions and beliefs, but it needs to be done properly. This is where polemics comes in. Derived from the Greek word polemikos, meaning warlike or hostile, this is the art of arguing. And I don't know about you, but I want to become the best arguer that I know. Because I think it'd be pretty beneficial in settings like this, or at home with my family, with my significant other, or even my friends. It's a good thing to know. So polemics is the mastery in refuting the ideas or beliefs of another person. It's this idea that you use tact and diplomacy in a controversial conversation rather than emotions and passion. Now, not to say that emotions and passion aren't necessary or useful in controversial conversations, but progress is made when there are concrete and fact-based arguments, which aren't often found when emotions are running high. Polemics are the basis for any situation surrounding religion and politics. Presenting facts in a calm and correctable manner will get you further in life than any other method under the sun. So next time you're in a heated discussion, step back, breathe, and think polemics. Now that we're all on the same page on how to go about a discussion like this, let's begin. Religion has been a driving force in politics in our country since the beginning. The United States was built upon Christian principles, meaning that the original 13 colonies were offshoots of a Christian kingdom, Great Britain, whose social and political systems were greatly influenced by Catholicism. With Christianity deeply rooted in the way that these people lived life, it's inevitable that we see it in our making and our constructs. As we look at the religious influence today, it's a stark difference between today and 20 years ago, let alone taking it all the way back to the Puritans, which are the original immigrants. If you look at our parents, or even our grandparents, most of them were raised with a religious background of some degree. Going to a service of worship every weekend. They had a system, a rhythm that was quite simple in their eyes, and quite frankly, you and I have broken that system. Because now we have new and different religions, and offshoots of old beliefs, and then we get this jumbled up mess of opinions deeply rooted in who we are as people. Should this affect our politics? I'll let you think on that for a bit, because we need to address this P word that I keep mentioning. It makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and many avoid it at all costs. It can ruin a friendship, break up a family, and I would even say tear down a nation. Politics. Some of you here may be the ones who get really uncomfortable in political conversations. And to you, I say, I dare you to listen to what I'm about to say next. Soak it in. Let it affect the way that you view yourself as a citizen of the United States. So politics are mandatory in our government. Think about it like this. Politics gives us the right to have a voice in the activities and happenings of our county, states, and nation. We are fortunate to live in a country that gives us this voice. For many across the world, this isn't their reality. Politics is this far-off thing that only the rich get to involve themselves in. So think of your involvement and inclusion in politics as a right and even a privilege. Politics have also made strides in our nation. Think about all of us women in here, our right to vote yesterday, or a black person's right to use the same restroom as a white person. We have come a long way, and I don't think anyone can really argue that. Be it through war or civil discourse, look at where we are today. So, I ask again, does religion have a say in the way we choose to govern our society? Does religion have a place in politics? Yes, but on a personal level. If you don't vote according to your beliefs and convictions, I would venture to ask you if you believe in anything at all. You cannot ask the pro-life Christian to vote against their beliefs, the same way you can't ask an anti-gun advocate to vote for fewer limitations on guns. We all vote according to our worldview and perspective. And with religion greatly affecting the way most of us view the world, it's kind of impossible to get rid of it. Now, I don't want to be misunderstood here. There is a definite line between personal religious conviction and imposing a set of moral rules or religious values on a population as a whole. I'm talking about your specific beliefs and nothing more. I'm talking about ending this fight that there seems to be between religion and politics and implementing polemics to come to rational conclusions for our country. Have you ever sat down and thought about how religion and politics rely on each other to unify their people or believers? Think about how Donald Trump, for instance, constantly mentions his belief in God to unify what he believes makes up the foundation of his supporters. Or how a religious leader of any given congregation will infuse their sermons and services with a political agenda that fits the set beliefs of that religion. Or how when tragedy strikes in our nation, we find comfort in prayer and vigils, and we are united through religious encouragement. So as you can see, politics and religion are used in different but very beneficial ways. Now, I'd like to remind us where there is a power to unify, there is an equal power to divide. Religion and politics unify and divide us, and science is also a very powerful force in our lives. Have you ever thought about how science unifies us as a nation? At first, when I looked at this question, I thought it was a little far-fetched. I've never thought about that in my life. But when you think about it, from what we eat, how and when we sleep, to what car we choose to drive, and what candidate we choose to vote for, science predicts the weather for tomorrow and is the basis for our medical institutions. Science is based on evidence and research, and scientists take that evidence and research and evaluate it, let it speak for itself, and they don't take sides. But many of its ideas and predictions come from theories, meaning that at any time there could be new evidence and research found that disprove them. Is anything actually guaranteed? I found myself scratching my head and asking this question a bajillion times. The only thing that I can stand up here and promise you are death and taxes. We don't know and can't prove that God created the world in 7 days. We don't know and can't prove that particles came together to form this place that we call Earth. There are necessary questions and doubts on both sides of the coin. When it comes to creation, there's the creation itself, a holy book that is historically accurate, and a God who claims to be all-powerful. When it comes to evolution, there's the result of the evolution around us, and substantial evidence. But the probability of the circumstances being perfect enough cause great doubt in some. Now, I do not aim to discount any of the irrefutable facts found in either of these theories. I'm not a scientist, and I will never claim to be, so don't rip me apart up here. I'm just trying to get us thinking on the other side of the fence. And don't forget about polemics. It may be much easier to sit back and complain about this uncertainty and not search for any of the solutions. But I have a quote that I think will bring some encouragement to you to go out and find them. This quote is from the principal investigator, Elaine Howard Eklund, of a study done by Rice University. This study found that more than half of the scientists in Italy, India, Taiwan, and Turkey self-identify as religious. Eklund is found saying that science is a global endeavor, and as long as it is global, then we must recognize that the borders between science and religion are more permeable than most people think. I think that although contrary to popular belief, science can agree with religion. I don't have nearly enough time to go into depth on this topic, but I stand here and encourage you to search for those answers in your own life. Whether you walked in with these questions or you're walking out with new ones, search for them. As found in the study by Rice University, I'd like to remind you that you don't have to pick a side. Reality is, I don't have your answers, and I never will. I just want you to think beyond your worldview. For me personally, I really struggle with connecting science and religion because most people think that in order to have one, you must drop the other, and then I find myself in conflict. I'm still on my quest for my answers, So instead of giving you a conclusion, telling you how to think or what to do, I have a few questions that I think would be a bit more constructive. Religion and politics have an inevitable relationship. How can we make that a healthy one? Science, more often than not, can go hand in hand with religion. How can we work to connect the two in our personal lives? We are a new generation of thinkers, not bogged down by political correctness or religious obligations. We are a people capable of having very strong beliefs, but not compromising our rights and obligations as citizens. How can you be bold when it comes to science and politics and religion? And I think my final question for you would really drive home my point. Are you even willing to be bold? Are you willing to stand up for what you believe in? Because at this point in my life, I know I am.
Good afternoon. My name is Oren Muszkal, and I'll be your second moderator for this evening. Thank you, Sarah, for such an enlightening speech. I question the same issues as a mother of three, a business major, raising my children. I worry about politics, religion, and what is to become of this world in the next 10 years. But now more than ever, we must remain civil with so much hatred in the air. We must keep an open mind to embrace the difference of opinions and people. And with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, who has traveled to this country from Israel at the age of 9, finding himself in a new world. Throughout high school, he was undiagnosed with ADHD and fell behind on most of his studies. Graduating with a 2.1 GPA, after spending some time in the workforce and finally diagnosing his ADHD, he spent countless hours on improving his condition. He came back to school in stride with a high GPA and becoming a member of the Honors College, majoring in computer engineering and wanting to create his own business. Now comes the only guy willing to give a speech in a toga. Please help me welcome Oren Muszkal.
As the previous speaker mentioned, there are many divisive topics in today's world. But I would like to remind you all that we are all a part of this great nation, given our freedoms and following our laws. But most of us don't even know each other's names. And yet, as Americans, we consider ourselves as one. Some of us do know what a citizen is. But where does this idea come from, of people with no relations calling themselves united, come from? Why do we trust in a system we don't understand? The concept of citizenship, that we may consider ourselves as one people, that we are all born from the blood of our communities and share a power and responsibility, comes from the fear of enslavement, the need to create a bond to unite people, and the need to fight against our oppressors. The ancient Athenians, who feared the idea of slavery because it contrasted with their need for freedom. The Romans, who spread their citizenship far and wide to stop infighting. And the Roman plebeians, wielding the power of their citizenship in the Roman Republic against the battle with the patricians, the rich ruling class. So we can see that the concepts that came to be. But what is a citizen? Each culture has defined it differently. The ancient Athenians believed that any free man born in Greece, participating in politics, is a citizen. The Romans believed any free man who accepted the Roman lifestyle and culture could be considered a citizen. But these definitions don't really work for America. In my eyes, a real citizen is one who cares for his community, who helps those in need, and who voices their opinions. So for the next few minutes, I'd like to discuss with you all the ideas that grew and became our civilization. But first, let's start in the beginning, as all stories do. The ancient Athenians believed that the fear of slavery was so great that they needed to create an idea of a citizen, but they only created it for themselves. They believed that the value of their freedom was more important than anything else, and they employed strict laws to prevent any Athenian citizen from falling into slavery. The slaves of the time were much like the modern version of slaves. Since the Athenians believed the only occupation worthy of a citizen was politics, the slaves were left to do the menial tasks, such as mining and agriculture. But these slaves were much different. They held very key rights that most of the versions of modern slavery do not hold, such as the right to hold their own families, the right to have trials, and even the protection of their masters under law. The Athenians also arranged their political institutions to remain freemen and to focus on philosophy and art. The growth of slavery in the world was what made them particularly conscious of the values of their freedom. Any Athenian farmer might fall into debt and force himself into slavery, and any battle that they fought, they avoided if they could be taken into slavery. Their focus and their value of freedom was so important to them. Their focus never ever changed. Protect our freedom. But this is an example of citizenship being used by the rich. So how about the poor? The Roman plebeians, lowly farmers and menial workers, used the power of their citizenship within the Roman Republic to strip away the power of the patricians, the rich ruling class. In the beginning, they had very little rights. The patricians owned all of the land, and they held all of the political power. The plebeians could not marry patricians or hold a seat of power. The Roman government pitted the upper class interests versus the lower order working groups in what is described as a tense tug of war between the dignity of the great man and the liberty of the small man. But around 494 BCE, things have begun to change. The plebeians had had enough. In what is now considered the conflict of the orders, the plebeians protested. They would go on strikes. They would leave the city, and they would even refuse to fight in the armies. Eventually, they gained several key rights, such as the ability to marry, the ability to vote, and the ability to run for office. They were finally being treated as full citizens. And while big changes were happening in the cities for rights, the outer rims of the Roman Republic also benefited. The Roman army conquered many, many cities between 501 BCE and 30 BCE. And to avoid the infighting and rebellions from this, the Romans devised a few citizenship decrees to keep the civilians happy. They were an expansionary republic, spreading their power and influence across Eastern Europe, Asia, and Africa. To stop all of their foes and all of the rebellions, they had to devise a system of citizenship to keep these people content and that they would feel included within the Roman Republic. Such terms emerged as the provinciales, one who is not a full Roman citizen since his home fell under Roman control and thus could not serve within the Roman army. Socii, or foederati, terms used to give allies and foes of the Roman Republic, and they were considered full citizens, given the ability to call the army or even join it themselves. So the use of citizenship comes from a varied background, but ultimately, no matter what form it may take, citizenship gives us the abilities to voice our opinions to our neighbors, our councils, and our government. And though the groundwork for these things is riddled with fear and anxiety, It has ultimately served a major role in the making of our current world. The famous Roman lawyer, Marcus Tullius Cicero, once described his opinion of citizenship as follows: "For the ties of common blood unite men in kindness and love. It is a great thing to have one family history, a common worship, a common tomb. But when men of good character are united in friendship, there we see the noblest and the strongest union." So, introduce yourself to your neighbors, introduce yourself to your communities, and exchange each other's names. We are all one people.
Thank you, Oren, for such an inspiring speech. From his message of togetherness, we should all take pride in the freedom provided in the American Constitution. However, our next speaker will bring on one of the most heated and divisive topics that's plaguing our nation currently, healthcare. It is an honor to introduce the next speaker who has inspired me to keep an open mind. Majoring in biology for pre-med, a member of the Honors College, and who plans to become a pediatrician, establishing multiple pediatric facilities around the world, please help me to welcome Aaron Daley.
Before I begin, I would like to give you all some insight about my life. I'm a single dad, having to raise 3 children, going to school and working 2 full-time jobs, living paycheck to paycheck. Recently, doctors confirmed that one of my children is obese, an epidemic that leads the US in deaths per year at 300,000, being that my other 2 children already have diabetes. Day in and day out, I cannot help to think how the frequent doctor visits and medical expenses will be covered, being that I am not ineligible for Medicaid, and all other insurance options are ridiculously expensive. Studies show that paying for healthcare is the top financial burden in the United States, accounting for 62% of personal bankruptcies. What if I said everything I told you about my life thus far was a lie? Imagine if this is the reality of your neighbor or even the person sitting next to you. It's a lot to take in, isn't it? Some of you are probably in your minds saying, how would their struggles affect my life? And why should I care? Well, the medically uninsured miss about 4.7 more work days than the insured, annually equating to a loss of $130 billion as a result of diminished work productivity. It can increase taxes if numbers increase. Still saying who cares? Well, although I may not have all the answers, I believe America should strive toward affordable health care because everyone who does not have it needs it. It can improve our health status as a nation, and because a healthy economy is a thriving economy. So, some of y'all are probably asking, what is the real definition of a nation? What would the prodigious classical Greek philosopher Plato think of America's current healthcare system? Going back in time more recently, what would German Enlightenment influencer and philosopher Immanuel Kant's views be on how we should treat people, and also his views on America's current healthcare system? With that being said, let's go further in depth as to what a nation truly is. Can a nation be a community? Can a nation be a group of people with an identity made up of different religions, cultures, and ethnicities? Well, yeah. Technically speaking, all are correct, but my preferred definition would be a society that aspires to be a state-like organization with the people in it having almost similar political views. If the people of this society become successful in forming this type of nation, the people in that society become civic. The United States is not this type of nation per se, but represents some of the aspects of what a nation truly is. So, with the basic definition of civic meaning, to help others in any way possible, and members of a nation are to be morally civic, shouldn't we all be striving to help, and I quote, the 44 million Americans without health insurance? Many people dehumanize the homeless, ignoring them in traffic or even on our trips to the grocery store. But what are we doing as Americans to ensure that these people are not forced to the streets because of this issue or any issue? Plato states that we are only as strong as our weakest link. But if our weakest link are the ones who cannot afford our health insurance, how strong is America really? Even though applying Plato's philosophy to today's society would be controversial, his views still aid to a topic that wasn't even in thought during his lifetime, which is incredible. Plato, or Platon, which means broad, a name given to him by his wrestling coach because of his shoulders, is a classical Greek philosopher and plays a pivotal role in Greek history and Western philosophy. Plato is known for his 4 dialogues of Socrates' trial, Socrates being his teacher, and the establishment of the first university of the Western world. Inspired by Socrates, and after his death, Plato continued to study philosophy, wanting to uncover the absolute truths of the universe, thus writing the Republic. In Plato's most renowned book, The Republic, he states that a state or nation, for purposes of the speech, should be just. To be just means to be open-minded, unbiased, and morally right and or fair. To put just into perspective, it is not just to want to defund programs such as Obamacare that help those in need without even offering an alternative. It is not just that in America, a diagnosis of cancer results in personal bankruptcy. Even though Plato did not favor any type of democracy, he believed in a fair society with structure where everyone had a fair advantage, even the women and the children. Undoubtedly, affordable healthcare would have definitely been up Plato's alley. Now let's move forward towards Immanuel Kant's views in philosophy. Immanuel Kant is an 18th century philosopher and is also instrumental to the development of Western philosophy. He contributed to metaphysics, philosophy that questions knowledge, epistemology, theory of knowledge, aesthetics, and ethics. His contributions to ethics have been profound, more so than any of his other works. Being the most important ingredient in duty-based ethics, Kant states that the sole feature that gives an action moral worth is not the outcome that is achieved, but the motive behind it. For your actions to have moral worth, it has to line up with the universal principles discovered by reason, or it is unethical. Examples of these principles would be law of action, law of attraction, law of cause and effect, law of correspondence, so on and so forth. Moreover, Kant focuses on an individual rather than a society as a whole. He states that we are not a means to someone else's pleasure or well-being. In perspective, saying that one should not treat another as they would not treat themselves, and not to see an individual as someone who fulfills your tasks, sensations, or desires. The German philosopher then goes on to say that all humans are subject, that all humans have an absolute worth and are subject to nourishment, a substance necessary for growth, good condition, health, free thoughts, and senses. This is called the formula of humanity, and personally, I agree with this view. Kant is basically stating that, in a sense, we are all one people. Some may be older, taller, smarter, or wealthier, but we are all equal human beings. So with this revelation, why don't all citizens have access to the same health insurance as that guy drinking a margarita on his penthouse balcony in Beverly Hills? What if the roles of the less fortunate and the wealthy were reversed? Wouldn't you advocate for these same reforms? Even ignoring the formula of humanity altogether, it is clear that Kant would not say nay to the affordability of healthcare in America. Bringing forth all aspects, perspectives, and views, I believe America can strive toward affordable healthcare if we follow suit and truly represent what it means to be a nation. Why should one have to suffer with a health condition that was previously unknown to them on top of personal bankruptcy? As Plato would say, this is not just. Why do we have so much pride in our nation when in reality, we aren't much of a nation at all?
What an amazing speech. What is a nation? That is a great question. If you would ask me, I would actually agree with Aaron. A nation is when we are able to be civic, when you are willing to help one another when needed, not just by help reducing healthcare or voting, but in every aspect of our life. And now we're gonna move up to Q&A. when we are able to answer any questions that you guys have. But first, I would like to invite another classmates to sit with us and help answer any questions you guys have. Our classmate's name is Ari Cohen, served in the US Army for 5 years and had the tour in Afghanistan. Please help me welcome Ari Cohen. Any questions for anyone?
Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate you guys. You did a great job. My question is, I know so far the Asian slave and the modern slave are way different. They're not the same. But in order to be a free man, you need to fight for it. But in order to be one nation, or those beliefs help us as nation be better or worse? Those believe that we are, like, as American way, we all believe in God. But can this God help us be better or worse?
Hello? Perfect. If I heard you correctly, you're talking about the morality of our nation, and if I'm claiming that there's a God, why isn't he making us better? Alright, it depends on what God you're talking about. If you're talking about the God from the Bible, it's a sin issue, not necessarily a God issue. God gave us this free will and this free choice as it speaks about in the Bible, and God does give us help, moral help, if you would so to say, and that's when Jesus Christ comes in and his crucifixion and resurrection. And so I think it really lies with the sinfulness of man and whether or not you think man is innately good or bad. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No question. Okay.
Coming back to what you just said, so basically, you believe God has a lot of power, right? He's the greatest being, is that right?
Are you asking my personal beliefs on this matter?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that God is all powerful, sovereign.
Okay. So I think the most basic question to ask, if he's so powerful and so just, why does he let innocent people be, for example, raped and murdered when they were innocent?
Alright, so, it's kind of off topic, but I'll give a go at it. I'll remind you that I'm just a student figuring this all out on my own. But I think it lies in the fact that you think God is all powerful. If you believe that God is capable of having emotions, that's what a lot of people believe. That's why it says that man was made in his image, that he gave us emotions, meaning that he has emotions, he's capable of being angry, he's capable of being sad, happy, and those sorts of things. And so I think it's the realization that if you believe God is all powerful, that means he is all powerful in both the good sense and a bad sense. Does that make sense to you, sort of? Am I hitting it on the head, or?
In a sense it does, but basically what you're telling me is that evil overpowers good. Because basically he's not doing anything.
Alright, so I'm gonna call a truce here. You can talk to me personally afterwards, but I think there would be a little bit more constructive questions out there. But I would love to talk to you about this on the matter afterwards.
Any other questions? Related to what you discussed earlier, how in today's politics we tend to get into very intense debates. What would you say is the reason that we've got to this point where our political environment is so toxic that it seems every time we try to discuss something, it erupts into a debate. And what would you say we can do to avoid having an atmosphere like this in the future?
Okay, can you say it without the microphone? Because the echo up here, we can't hear you.
Oh.
You're good, sorry.
Related to what you said earlier, like that today's political atmosphere, it could be considered very toxic and like pretty much involved in like a silly debate. What would you say has led to this type of environment forming, and what can we do as a society to avoid having it be like this in the future?
I think we've become more diverse as a nation. I think that's why it's very different from 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We have, as I was saying, new religions, more religions than we're used to. And I think a lot of people go into discussions like this, not only holding certain things to be their, not certain things that you can't compromise on, but almost everything is not up for debate. This is my view, and I'm not going to come into it with an open mind. And I think you do have those truths that you need to hold on to, but I think there are some things that we need to let go of and really open the floor up for a civil and diplomatic debate.
So we need to learn to approach things more open-mindedly, basically.
Yes, but not letting go of your solid beliefs, the truths that you hold in your own life and the morality that you live by.
Thank you. I had a question for Aaron. Really good presentation, by the way. My question was more of, I understood your idea about how healthcare should be affordable and how it just goes along with justice and all other values that Americans, uphold and believe. But how do you practically sort of take that idea and make a difference? I don't see a lot of solid economics or how we're going to actually implement that. So I was wondering how you take that idea and actually put it into action today.
First, I think first we would have to all come together and acknowledge the fact that we would all have to come together and really discuss the healthcare in America, well, not just in America, but everywhere else, and kind of not really compare it, but yeah, compare it to the other nations with healthcare, and try to figure out where we go wrong or we go right. And that's a good question. Yeah. Yeah.
To add on what Aaron said, we have various examples of third world and first world countries offering universal health care, such as our neighbors in Canada and various South American countries. So from the economic perspective, we have systems in place where we can compare to that we can add on to our own in such a sense. So it wouldn't be that difficult from the economic perspective, but trying to get a more socialist ideal is difficult to get through our current American society.
Any other questions? And if you have any questions while he's giving his question, you just raise your hand so I know.
I was wondering, do you guys, any of you believe that God is representative of some sort of energy that takes care of us? So let's say God, since we can't see God, what if there's an energy taking care of us sent by God?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that without the microphone and talk as loudly as you can?
So I was wondering if you guys think that anything taken care of us outside that we can't see. So like God sent an entity to us that takes care of us for us.
All right, so I think this is directed at me.
It's anyone's point of view.
No. Sorry. I take a form of religious belief known as a deist. So I believe that God created each one of us in His image, but when created us, and that's it. He would leave us, and we would be born. He has no effect on the current world. So my answer to you would be no. I don't believe God is this energy. I believe He is the primordial creation of man.
And then I guess I sit on the other side of the table completely, literally. I sit and I believe that God does have a hand in what happens in our culture today and in our personal lives. I believe He created us for a relationship. He didn't create us and just say, have at it, have fun, you know. An analogy that always got me when I was questioning this myself was just as we see the effects of the wind and we can't see the wind itself, that's how I believe God acts in our life. You can either choose to see it as God working or just as coincidence. And I think it's that choice to believe, oh no, this is God doing this or this is coincidence. So I think that's a question you have to answer for yourself. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for more questions, but if you do, just when the speakers are walking out, you're free to ask them any questions. Next up, we have more students that wanted to thank everybody that had something to do with this symposium. First off, Stefano Palanzuela and Tyler Terry.
Hello everyone. I'd like to thank the following people for making this happen today. This was a very informal event, and I'd like to thank the following. If you are here, please stand to be greeted by applause. Okay. Dean Henry Mack of the Arts, Humanities, and Communication Department, and Ms. Queen Davis for the moral support in organization and logistics. I'd like to thank Mrs. Sandy Gans for her work on the flyer. Mr. Edwin Luna for his help with social media and promotion. Mrs. Luz Cardona, Senior Executive Assistant for President Rolando Garcia. Dean Gloria Arcia, Dean of Business Affairs. Ms. Frances Frazier and Ms. Tiffany Irving of Student Life. Mr. Harold Bilbao for his help with technology here in the PCAT. Dr. Edward Cornejo, our instructor for the Humanities. And the various committees in which our class has divided itself for making this possible today.
Alrighty everyone, thank you again for showing up this afternoon. When you came in, you should have been given a survey. It is very important when you leave, you hand these surveys back to the ushers. And make sure you fill them out because they are worth a grade to us as we presented you with this symposium today. So make sure you get them done, you just hand them over to the ushers, and we appreciate your help. We'd also like to welcome Dr. Sunambina Garcia and Dr. Rolando Garcia. Please have a warm round of applause for them.
Good afternoon, everyone. Come on, give me some energy. All right? I want you to give it up for our speakers. It takes an incredible amount of courage and motivation to get up and have a conversation. So thank you very much. Dr. Vita Garcia, is there anything you'd like to say before I dismiss the symposium?
I'll just add my congratulations for your preparation. You're so articulate and confident. I was super impressed with your presentations and all the work that went into doing this. And I just want to bring the congratulations from your fellow Seahawks at Central. They also send their regards, and we're also very proud of you, so well done.
So while I mentioned it is courageous and it requires an incredible amount of preparation, I want all of you to really consider what they were talking about and how they did it in a civil manner. It's something that is lacking right now. We don't seem to respect each other or love each other as much as we should. So please learn from what you have seen and continue being good to one another. This country needs us to heal. With that, I will dismiss the symposium. Thank you very much.